Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, we are doing some thrift flips using Redesign's new Easter release. For my first project, I'm going to be using Lysandra and Lucien. These are retired Redesign molds, unfortunately. I'm going to be adding some fast cast resin to a silicone cup, mixing equal parts A and B and stirring it really well for about 30 seconds. And then I'm going to start pouring the resin into the molds that I'm going to use today. While this first project isn't exactly a thrift flip, I do feel, however, that it could be adapted to be used with thrifted frames. After about 15 minutes, my frames are ready to come out, so I'm going to go around and start pulling them out. As you can see, they come out really easy. Now, I made these with resin because I want them to be able to be used as a standalone item. I'm not going to glue them to anything, so that was very important that they had the stability of the resin. I'm now going to use Paint Couture's Farmhouse linen. I'm just going to be coating the center part of each of these little frames here because we're going to be doing some stamping over the top of them, and this will be sure to soak in that ink nicely and produce a lovely image. It's going to take 2 coats to get the coverage that I'm after, and then I let them dry. I'm then going to be using Redesign's new Easter stamp. This stamp set is so gorgeous. There are so many beautiful elements to be used in this one. I'm going to select my first design. I'm inking it up with some black permanent ink. I'm using a wet wipe to tidy up any areas that I got ink where I shouldn't, and then I'm going to press my first design into the smaller frame there. You can see that I'm carefully pressing down on the stamp so that I get a good impression. I'm then going to grab another one of the stamps, and I am adding this larger design to one of the larger resin frames. These are so beautifully detailed and just absolutely gorgeous. I love how delicate the details are in them. I am going to use a wet wipe to tidy up any excess ink that I got on the frame, and we're moving on to the next one. So as you can see, it's definitely a little bit repetitive. I'm just picking designs out that I think will be suitable, inking them up and then pressing them down. You'll also notice that I am not using a backing on this. I need to be able to press that stamp into the frame and be able to make good contact with the surface. For the next stamp that I'm going to use, I just inked up part of the stamp and then I used a wet wipe to wipe back the areas that I'm not going to use, and then I pressed it into the resin frame. So you can see I'm just taking bits and pieces of the stamps if they don't fit my frame as is. And then when I am ready, I'm lifting those stamps straight up. On this particular design, I just wanted the little bunny that was on the bike. So you can see I'm tidying up any of the excess ink, and then I'm going to position it where I want it to go and press down. After I finished stamping, I allowed my ink to dry for several hours, and then I came in with Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in satin, and I am going to be sealing the center part. We're going to be using some other colors around the edges and also some glazes. So by doing this, I'm able to wipe back any excess that I don't want. When that's dry, I'm going to take Paint Couture's Queen's Court mineral paint, and I am going to be adding it to one of my little frames there. You can see I'm working my way around the edges of the resin frame, and then I am very carefully going in a little bit deeper because there is a little bit of a lip there. But I'm not too worried if I get paint where I don't want it. Remember, we have sealed it, so I am able to come in with a wet wipe and tidy that area up. I'm also adding the beautiful Queen's Court mineral paint to this little smaller round resin frame. Next, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Ballet Slipper Luxe Metallic paint on 2 of the frames. And again, you can see I am just working my way around the design, adding that beautiful paint. Now, with the Luxe Metallic and the Queen's Court, I am going to be doing 2 coats to get the coverage that I want. And always worth remembering that the metallics get a lot more shiny and vibrant once they are dry. For my other two oval shaped frames, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's French Gold. Now this is a heavy metal luxe metallic paint, and I'm going to continue to work my way around adding this beautiful gold, and it is going to take 2 coats for this one as well to get the coverage that I want. If you're going to try this at home, you can definitely paint the backs if you like. I, however, went back in, and before my paint was completely dry, I tidied up the back of each of these with a wet wipe. Once my paint was completely dry, I took Paint Couture's Stardust Heavy Metal Metallic Paint, and I'm going to come in, and on the ones that we painted with Queen's Court, I am going to be adding this beautiful silver metallic. So I'm just going to be going over the beautiful scroll details on this particular design. On the smaller blue frame, I took some of Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I'm just adding it to the beautiful ornate details on the top of this particular resin frame. After my paint had dried completely, I then took Paint Couture's Light Brown Sugar Glaze, and I'm going to be adding it just to the center of each of the frames and then using a wet wipe to wipe back the excess. You can see I'm really working it into the details of the frame. I'm even going over the top of that beautiful Queen's Court paint. This is going to give these a lovely vintage feel, but it's also going to bring out more of those beautiful details that are in those particular resin molds. So I'm going to continue the same process for each of our little resin frames. If I've inspired you to try any of these Paint Couture products, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. I will pop it on the screen and in the description. I just get a little thank you from Paint Couture in return. After I was finished adding the glaze and it had dried, I did decide to take some more of Paint Couture's French Gold and just to add some of that beautiful color to the top details on the Ballet Slipper Luxe Metallic paint frames. I just felt like highlighting the beautiful ornate details just really helped tie these resin frame designs together. These beautiful frames could definitely be used in so many different ways. I could see them as fridge magnets, as sweet little pendants that maybe you hung on an Easter tree if you do that sort of thing. However, for my project today, I'm going to be attaching a brooch attachment to the back of the oval design. So I'm just adding a strip of Gorilla's Super Glue Gel and then putting that brooch attachment on the back. And I'm repeating the same process for the other oval frames. For the other resin frame designs, however, I had a different idea. I wanted them to be standing frames. So I took this little screw-in eye hook and I am going to screw it into the back of my resin pieces. I'm not going to go too far, and then I'm also going to push it on a little bit of an angle, and then you will see that it stands up perfectly. Because these are very light, this is all the support that our frames need for them to be able to stand up, just like little mini picture frames. And here's a look at our Easter stamp projects. I think these turned out really sweet. I love those beautiful new Redesign Easter stamps. It's definitely something that I can see myself using a lot. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my next project, I'm going to be giving this little thrifted teapot a makeover. As soon as I saw it, I thought it would be perfect to work with because of its cute small shape. I am going to be using Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer in white to prime my surface first. This is obviously a shiny surface, so in order for me to paint it, I'm going to need to prime it. So I'm going to continue to paint the entire piece, including the little lid, and it's going to take 2 coats to prime it properly. Once the primer is dry, I'm going to take Paint Couture's Farmhouse linen and I'm going to give my little teapot 2 coats. When my 2 coats of paint are dry, I'm going to take Redesign's new Easter Wreaths mold. This is so cute. I'm so excited to be using this one. I'm going to dust the little bunny on the right there with cornstarch first, and then also the wreath that surrounds him. I'm then going to take my dust air dry clay and start working it into the little bunny design first. So you can see I'm using my fingers to pull out the excess, and then I will flex that mold and carefully pull out our little design. I'm then going to start working my clay into the wreath design there. So again, just pushing that clay in and then pulling the clay out with my thumbs. And then once I'm happy with that, I will flex that mold. And this time, however, I did decide to flip the design over, and gravity definitely helped me get this intricate piece out. There are so many sweet, tiny little flowers in this design, so I didn't want to break any of them off. I am then going to start looking at my teapot. I actually ended up taking that wreath apart because it was a little bit bigger than I wanted, and I'm going to put the glue on the back. So I'm just using Sealy's quick set wood glue, and I'm going to start positioning it on the teapot. So you can see I'm putting it in sort of like a round shape there, but I really want my little bunny to sit in the center, so I'm definitely mindful of that. So I'm going to add some glue to the back of him and then sit him in the center down the bottom, gently molding him to the surface of the teapot, and then I'm going to add in the extra missing flowers. I also added some of the flowers that I didn't use to the top of the teapot, and now I'm also going to cast the sweet bow that's in the Easter Wreaths mold, and I am going to be attaching that to the bottom underneath our little rabbit. I let my clay dry overnight, and then the next day I came in with that Farmhouse linen again, and I'm going to give the molds 1 coat of this lovely white paint so that it ties in with the rest of the teapot. When that was dry, I took Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in satin and I sealed the entire teapot and the lid. Because I'm going to be coming in with another colour and also some glazing, sealing my teapot is going to give me the freedom to wipe back as much or as little as I want. When that's dry, I'm going to take Paint Couture's Vintage Moss Mineral Paint, and I'm going to be adding 2 coats of that just to the teapot spout and also to the handle. I just love the combination of this lovely off-white tone with this beautiful earthy green. Because I have sealed my paint already, if I go in an area that I don't want the green paint, I'm able to wipe that back with a wet wipe. So if you are not very confident or you feel like you don't have the steadiest hand, I definitely recommend that you do seal before you come in with any additional colors. I also then took the vintage moss and added it to the teapot lid. I'm then going to add some of that same paint to the little leaf that's sitting on top of the teapot lid. And then I focused my attention on the teapot itself. You can see I've already started adding the green in. And as I was doing this, I decided that I would just paint all of the flowers in that vintage moss color. And then once I was happy with the coverage there, that I would actually come in and start wiping it back. I was trying to treat that vintage moss almost like it was a glaze, and I really liked the effect of this. So I'm going to continue to work my way around the wreath there, adding that vintage moss paint and then wiping it away with a wet wipe. And I'm working in small sections because obviously this is a paint, so it's not going to work exactly like a glaze. So I need to wipe it back pretty quickly before it starts to set. I'm also quite happy for it to go around the details of the molds as well. It's almost like it's highlighting around the edges. If you're going to give this a try at home, remember you could always come in with colors. You don't have to just stick with the green like I have. I tried to keep my palette pretty simple here, but you could come in with a whole bunch of colors and make a beautiful, colorful floral wreath. It just depends what look you're after. Next, I'm going to take Paint Couture's Pine Cone Chalk Paint and I'm going to go over the top of our sweet little bunny in the center there. Now, I don't really feel like this step was absolutely necessary. I was still experimenting at this stage, but I did then come in with a wet wipe and wipe it back, again, treating it a little bit like it's a glaze. I do ultimately come in with a glaze a bit later, so you could probably leave this step out if you're going for a similar look. When that was dry, I came in with Paint Couture's Crackle Step 1. I'm going to dab and stipple that product on. I'm going to go in the center there over the top of the bunny. I am also going to go over the top of the bow, but I didn't go over the florals. I felt like there was a lot going on with those already. So I'm going to continue to work my way around the teapot, adding it to the rest of the piece. I let that Crackle Step 1 dry for about an hour, and then when it felt sticky and tacky to the touch, I came in with Crackle Step 2 and applied it in the exact same manner as I had with Step 1. So just remember to, however, to be a little bit more gentle with this. You don't want to disturb that Step 1 too much. And then I let that dry overnight. The next day I came in with Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze and I'm going to be going over the top of the entire teapot, really working that glaze into all of the details. I am of course going to be going over the top of the florals as well, but you'll see here that I'm coming in with a wet wipe and wiping it back and making sure that it's not too intense on the florals. We still want to see the beautiful green, but I do love how this glaze brings out the details of those molds. And of course it has made our bunny look really cute. And you can see what I meant about the pine cone not being completely necessary, because obviously that glaze is going to give him definition. I'm of course repeating the same process on the teapot lid. Once my glaze is dry, I took Paint Couture's Luxe Metallic in Bronze and I'm going to go over the top of our little bow first. And I'm loving the pop of color that this gives, the brightness and the shine. Obviously I've gone for quite a earthy vintage look with the rest of it, using the green and obviously the glaze and the crackle. Adding this bronze just really makes these details pop. I'm also adding it to the center of the flowers. And here's a look at our Easter teapot. I love how this turned out. Those beautiful Easter wreath molds are so beautiful. I could see this being used as a planter or just a decor item sitting on a shelf and looking pretty. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my next project, I'm going to be giving this sign that I thrifted a makeover. First, I need to prime it with Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer. It's going to stop any of that lettering coming through the paint once I've painted over the top of it, and it's going to prepare the surface for that paint. So I'm going to apply 2 even coats and let them dry. Once my primer was completely dry, I took Paint Couture's Farmhouse Linen Chalk Paint and I'm going to give this piece 2 coats. We're going to be doing some decoupage on this sign, so whenever I'm doing that, I like to have a nice white background so that the colors of the decoupage design can show to their best advantage. Next, I'm going to take out the beautiful new Dreamy Bunnies Decoupage paper by Redesign. There are 3 designs in this pack. As you can see, we have this sweet little one here sitting with the Easter basket and the eggs. The next design almost reminds me a little bit of Peter Rabbit, sweet little rabbit with the waistcoat on, and then this third design with the rabbit in amongst the florals, and that's the one that I decided to use. I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Decoupage Medium in matte first of all. I'm applying a generous coat on about 1/3 of the board. Now, bit of advice, I did not let my paper sit out. I did not iron it. I probably should have. It's not a problem ultimately, and I show you how you can fix this if you do the same thing, but it's probably best if you allow your paper to sit for a while and hopefully lose some of those creases. So you can see I'm just pushing that paper down, and then I'm repeating the same process, applying a generous amount of that decoupage medium on the second third of my sign there and pressing down. Redesign's tissue paper feels a lot more like gauze fabric. It is very strong and it is absolutely beautiful, but at this point I was a little bit nervous because I could still see the creases in it and I had never used this paper before. So what I did then was I took my Cricut iron, and once my decoupage medium was completely dry, you can see I'm going over the top of it with a sheet of baking paper between my design and my iron, and I am able to iron out those creases. So this is definitely something you can do if, like me, you don't get rid of those creases before you start doing your decoupage design, but it's definitely an idea to maybe get rid of them first if you can. Now, once my decoupage design was completely dry, I did put another coat of that sealer over the top, and then I came in with some sandpaper and I'm just sanding off the edges. To give the edges a bit more of a vintage look like our paper, I'm taking some of Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze and putting it on a makeup sponge, and I'm going to go around the edges just to deepen the tone there, because obviously you can see the white paint, so this is just going to help it all blend in a bit nicer. There was also some areas where it was a little bit lighter than I would have liked, so I added a little bit of glaze there too. And here's our finished bunny artwork. I absolutely adore Redesign's Dreamy Bunnies paper. Definitely a new favorite. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's video and that you've enjoyed seeing Redesign's new Easter range. I had so much fun giving these items a makeover. Let me know if you had a favorite project from today. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find most of the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.